Hi. On the internet, I am Petrus Incorporated, but you can just call me Peter. And this is my video commentating and explaining the Super Monkey Ball 2 Story Mode All Levels Speedrun World Record, set by me on September 25th, 2019. I want to make this video because though most people have played Super Monkey Ball at some point in their lives, what actually goes down in the speedrun is not all immediately apparent. Especially since in my PB video, my light was off and I was barely speaking because I was very focused and sweaty. So I figured it'd be fun to just go through what happens in this video, explain the time losses, the time saves, the new strats that have been developed over the years, so that you guys can understand a little bit more about the speedrun that I really like. Thank you, and enjoy. Let's get right into it. But before we do, you may notice there's a 9-second countdown on the left on my timer. The reason for this is load manipulation. Basically, the intro cutscene that plays at the beginning of the run is actually pre-loaded while you're in the naming screen for your file. So, by spending about 7 seconds in the file, we cut down the time spent watching that loading screen. It's a good way to save like a second right before the run really begins. So, to start off this PB, me from the past names his file Good Luck. Honestly, kind of fitting. I'm surprised that it wasn't random spam. You do a lot of file names when you do a lot of attempts at a category like this. Now, right from the get-go, there's a lot of cool, interesting techniques that happen in level and out of level. To start off, we'll talk about boosting. Whenever we start a level, we start by going diagonally up left or up right, and we even bump into the walls on purpose. The reason this works is diagonal inputs are actually stronger than cardinal inputs. So by boosting, as it's called, diagonally to start off, we accelerate faster and therefore save time in every level where we just have to go straight forward. And World 1 is filled with a lot of levels where you move straight forward. You'll also notice that at the beginning of every level, the menu pops up for a second. There it is. It was there for a second. It happens very quickly, but if you look closely, the menu does pop up. What we're doing is instantly retrying the level at the start. This speeds up the level stage spin-in animation and saves some time over the run. You'll also notice at the end of every level that we go to the stage select. We don't just let the level end animation play where II dances do its thing. We skip it because watching that every single time would actually lose several minutes throughout the run. Same with watching the level spin in every time. These kind of techniques are important in story mode, but don't appear as much in challenge mode since there's no stage select. So there's no real good option aside from holding the A button to spin in the level. Now, as we get deeper into World 1, I'll explain some of the interesting things that have changed when it comes to this run versus a run maybe you might have seen like 2 or 3 years ago. For one, pause strats. I have to start talking about this early because it's pretty interesting tech, and there's going to be a couple very big strats coming up pretty much right after this level, or 2 levels away from now. Pause strats are strats that use the pause menu in order to execute very, very cool task-like, normally non-RTA viable tricks that no human could react to without the assist of the pause menu. Basically, if you look at the timer at the top, I'll pause real quick so we have time to talk about this, you'll notice that not only are there seconds, but there's also centiseconds. And each centisecond actually represents a frame on the timer. Like 56 only appears once. And then the next frame will have another time, like 41, 06, stuff like that. So by looking at the timer, we actually know precisely what frame we are on since the level has begun. And by pausing, we can buffer an input into each of these frames. So say I want to move forward for 3 frames and then move backward for 2 frames. By buffering the pause menu, we can do exactly that every single time. So, using this pause frame technology, we can perform a skip on spinning top, which normally is not RTA viable. It's considered an IL strat, or individual levels. Basically, I buffer an up left, an up right, an up left, and an up right again, all on the precise frames of 66, 16, and then 63, I believe, which allows us to set up an angle to clip off of a tiny little corner of a wall meant to keep you on the stage to skip right up to the goal you'll see there at the top right instead of going around the spinning top. Boom, every time. Because of a little bit of randomness with how the game deals with collision in real time, that kind of thing would not be possible to do every time without the assistance of pause strats. Now, I spent a lot of time explaining this because you're going to see a very, very big pause strat that involves actually eight different cues on the timer. I'll just let you watch and enjoy, and then I'll explain. Well, I mean, you know what happened. You know what's happening pause-wise, but The history behind this strat is actually very funny and interesting. Curve bridge frames. Normally you'd have to walk around this stage, but thanks to this strat, we bounce across a couple precise corners on the bridge and fly right into the goal. And saves about 10 seconds, optimally. But yeah, the funny thing about curve bridge frames is that's a very relatively recent strat, and also very, very crazy. Only like the very, very, very highest level runners do it, and they don't really need it, but it saves time. But boy, does it cause a lot of resets, let me tell you. But yeah, that strat's funny because it was actually made kind of as a joke. It was kind of made as a test to see if people would actually do it. The people who use pause strats would try it and save time with it, and they did. No one thought they could save time with it at first, but they did. I believe it was the Japanese player Taco who first implemented that into his runs. So pretty cool. Anyway, on to World 2. The Lava World. Not many games have the Lava Volcano World as the second world. I think usually that's like World 8, or like the final world of a game, you know? The lava, scary and stuff. But if you know the story of the game, which I won't go into because we skip all the cutscenes in the speedrun, you'd know that there's a very good reason as to why these monkeys are in a volcano right now. Let me tell you. Anyway, the same things persist. These stages don't have a lot of pause strats, but we still do boost at the beginning of each stage, as you can see, to pick up speed and go faster. A lot of these strats in World 2 can go a little bit crazy. There's a lot of like weird variables that sometimes pop up and can cause you to reset. For example, this stage. Though it seems simple, Swell has little bumps all over the place that can knock you off the stage if you go too fast. So you'll notice I purposely slow down just a little bit to make sure that doesn't happen and I have to reset again. Now, while we're playing some long and simple stages, nothing here that's really needed to be explained. I'll talk a little bit about my timer setup on the left. There's a lot of information going on there, and for some reason, I don't know, he likes it. He likes to see a lot. But basically, I was the first player to start splitting every single level because I wanted to know what time I saved and what time I lost on every single level for some reason. Usually the meta is to just split every world. So basically, I finish a level, I know exactly how much faster I finished it than the last run, how much time I saved, how much time I lost to that particular level, and the information is cool. For example, see there, inchworms, I saved about 0.1 over the inchworms in my PB, and I'm now 5.5 seconds ahead of my PB. Being ahead of my PB kind of started in World 1 though, because I think I had a very fast curve bridge frames compared to what I normally do. Anyway, here comes another pretty big pause strat, another reset point since there's not a lot of backups to not quite get in the strat, so let's see if he gets it. Sorry, I know he gets it, I just didn't want to spoil. See how he clips off of the point of the bridge and the moving platform. No matter how many variables there are, you know, no matter how many moving platforms or tight clips, bounces off of like very, very tiny triangles and rails, all are 100% consistent with pause strats, since again, you are moving on the exact same frames every time. This game is totally frame dependent. If you do the same thing on the same frame, the same result happens every single time, which is what makes pause strats so helpful. An interesting thing about pause strats actually is that they don't completely win the game for you. Because in order to buffer to each individual frame, the player will often have to press the B button to close the menu and the start button to pause the menu again. Anywhere from 3 frames to only 1 frame apart. So you could call them frame perfect pause strats, but it's more like I can buffer to this frame, or I can buffer a bit away from this frame and then have to buffer again to get to it. So the faster you are at predicting what kind of buffer you need to get to each frame, and the faster you get to the frame you need, the faster your pausing is. This is a skill that's trained by top runners of Super Monkey Ball 2 with pauses. If you don't like pause strats too, you can also run story mode pauseless, which is another category that I've done a fair bit of running in, and it's quite fun. Definitely changes the flow to have to play each stage. Here's another one. This one's relatively recent actually. That is 53 dribbles. Dribbles is a crazy stage for just having a huge evolution of strats. That pause strat right there takes 3 frames, sometimes 2 frames. I unfortunately had to use a backup set, which would have more frames than the original set. But it takes you straight into the goal. You get hit by the obstacle, the dribble, into the goal. A long time ago, you might see even runners do a 1-frame pause strat that put them on top of the dribbles, and then they can bounce on the goal platform. But a couple seconds have been saved through more advanced frame tech. World 3 is one of my favorite worlds, actually. I really like the music in this world. It's pleasant, it's relaxing, and there aren't a lot of stages that can completely destroy your run. Except for this one, actually. This clip right here off the path, depending on what triangle you hit of that path, can send you right, left, forward, up, down. You have to be ready to react to whatever situation happens, and some situations are just like unavoidable death. But, you know, it saves like about half a second to boost into that clip as opposed to like hold up on it, which is kind of like a more consistent form. But you know, it's early on enough in the run that you can sacrifice time doing faster stuff. Here's one of the very first big falling strats in the run. Lots of stages happen to place the goal below the starting platform, so with a well-angled fall, you can just kind of touch the tape immediately without ever having to play the stage. Free fall strats or falling strats where you have to move the monkey in the ball in the air, are a good example of stages that there's no knowledge that speedrunners have that other players don't. It just takes a lot of practice being able to maneuver in the air. Also good evidence that you do not control the stage. The stage tilt is now what moves the monkey. It's actually you changing the force of gravity, which is what allows you to fly through the air at your control. Pro Skaters, does he get the IL World Record? He does not even come close to getting the IL World Record. Pro Skaters is such a short and simple stage that there is actually no faster way to play it than the strat I just did in story mode. Basically, you boost right, hit the button to stop the Pro Skater, and then drop right into the goal. The IL World Record is a 56.93, and well, I got 56.70, but very often you can get that exact time, or 56.91 every single time. One of the few IL World Records I have tied. I'm not an individual level player, that's what IL stands for, but if the stage is simple and short enough, even in RTA you get to have an IL World Record, so another reason to run this category. Now, cruising into World 4. World 4 is actually definitely one that's left a more powerful, fearful impact, I would say, on my disposition. Let me see if we can switch over to Peter from the past. This is another reason why, yeah, of course I'm recording this comment, because he's dark. There's no webcam. Trust me, his face is just like a description of fear. Absolutely terrifying, because this stage is coming up. Launchers. I'm actually going to pause to talk about this before we get into it. But there are actually two goals on launchers. There's one that you go in from the top, at the very top of the tower, and there's one at the bottom where you have to launch directly into it from the launchers at the bottom of the stage. Green goal launchers, the harder goal, the green goal, the warp goal, doesn't save you any time like it does in challenge mode, where it will warp you, skip a stage for you, but it is a little bit closer than the blue goal, so it saves just a couple seconds, and going straight into the goal from this bumper happens very quickly. And costs a lot of time to fail, so it's probably the scariest part of the run. In my opinion, it's the hardest strat in the entire run. So being able to get that first try on an already good run where you haven't died yet is just a rush. A rush. Something exciting. That strat actually there I invented. That's a 50 randomizer. A lot of strat names in this game are named after what number you see on the timer when you finish. It's kind of an easy way to say, hey, this strat's faster than your strat because the timer I have has a higher number than your timer, because the number goes down as you play, so the higher number is better. Yeah, you get it. But I kind of coined the movement that is required for 50 randomizer. Before, people could get 49.7s, 49.8s. So, you know, it saves 0.2 seconds. And then a Japanese runner, Moyashi, improved my setup, so it's not really my setup that anyone uses anymore. But partial credit. Moyashi gets more credit than me, but I started doing There aren't really a lot of strats that are solely to my name, actually, unfortunately. I'm more of a player than a looker, you know. But a couple things throughout the run you may notice are optimizations that me and several other top runners recently implemented. Seesaw Bridges is the final stage of World 4. You might ask, hey Peter, how come 4-9 was the final stage of World 4? When there's actually a cool stage coming up, so I'll pause this for a second. When usually there's 10 stages per level. Well, we did load manipulation. Basically, we switched which level we did last in order to help load the next cutscene for the world. It's a concept similar to the concept I talked about at the beginning of the run with the naming screen. I'll go into it in more detail when we do the next bit of load manip. For now, Wormhole. A stage I love, and a stage I've betrayed. You see, I'm pausing. What's going on? Why is he pausing? The strat is simple. All you gotta do is hit off of that little corner right there and bounce up into the goal. It's a pretty big corner. I don't see why you can't. I don't see why it's so precise, task precise, that you need to pause on it in order to get that strat. Well, there's a thing in this game called collision randomness. Some people call it collision RNG, but it's not quite RNG because, like I said, if you do the same thing every time, you get the same result. But based on your speed, based on the angle you come at clips, the game will sometimes not register the ball bonking into a little corner or a little ridge. Instead, the ball will pass right over it and give you no result whatsoever. And a stage like Wormhole, where you need to bounce, you need to get that clip in order to get to the top and skip most of the stage and go straight to the goal, whether you get that bounce or whether the ball just zorps right through it really matters. In fact, it's a difference of about 15 seconds. Completing the stage normally takes about like 20 seconds, and we beat it in like five or so right there with that strat. So because it's random, and because I need that time save at this point, comparing against my PB, trying to shoot for world record, I paused that stage. I was one of the players that didn't pause on that stage for the longest because it saves a couple seconds, obviously. Not freezing the game, not pausing the game means you complete the level faster. But the consistency of that strat is like 50%. 70% at best, but I think that was mental gymnastics. I don't think I ever had it beyond 50% because, you know, you go towards the clip, you miss it. You go towards the clip, you hit it. That's just kind of how it goes. There's nothing you can do to change it except by pausing, which loses a bit of time, but at least it guarantees you get the strat first try. Now, it's a good thing that I spent a lot of time talking about Wormhole, because the rest of World 5 is actually pretty simple. I hope you've been enjoying just the pretty much non-stop raw movement of this world, aside from Wormhole. It used to be a pauseless meta in World 5 when I did a Wormhole pauseless. If I ever come back to beat this world record, I will go back to not pausing on Wormhole to save that extra 2 seconds. But boy, will it be the cause of my insanity, because let me tell you, you hate to play a perfect run and then lose the run to RNG, dude. Anyway, as you can see, we are completing Zigzag Slopes last, the 7th stage in the world. We skipped this stage. Why? It's a super long stage. Just like in the naming screen, all the time spent in this stage is time spent loading the cutscene. So because Zigzag Slope is an extremely long stage, as you can see, it's taken me forever to get there. By the time I finish it, you'll notice right after I stage select, the cutscene is loaded instantly, and then I skip it. Boom. Did you see the cutscene? You didn't. It happened, it was skipped, it's gone, who cares? If I had completed the actual last stage of that run last, Fluctuation, we would have spent a lot longer sitting in the loading screen. We actually do this in every single world, except worlds 1, 2, 3, and 6, and 10. 1, 2, 3, and 6 is because the longest stage in the world happens to be already be the last stage in the world, but the others we change the order in order to save that time on loads. Here's another pretty brutal pause strat. It's a nice little pause movement hybrid. You gotta use a pause frame to set up a clip, but then you gotta do the work yourself of angling and falling into the goal. So it's like a pause strat combined with a falling strat. After this, it's all just adjusting. Free form movement. You gotta go straight into the goal. That's Opera, baby. Opera, for many players, is one of the more terrifying stages in the run. You have to pretend it's not scary, though, if you want to get first try. Most players understand, though they won't say it, but that stage does smell fear. So I imagine in that moment, let's just go back to old Peter. What's he up to? He's in darkness. Why did you turn your light on? You're doing world record attempts and your light's off, dude. Anyway. World 6 is actually pretty difficult. It can be a lot more difficult too, though, depending on what strats you do. Like this stage in particular, I take one bounce and then I hop into the goal. There's a version where you go straight forwards toward the goal at a very tight thread the needle kind of angle. I elect not to do that because I can never really get that strat first try. My playstyle with this game has always been confidence and consistency. If it's a level that I would hesitate to go for on a perfect run, or a level that I don't get first try when I'm nervous, it's a strat that I don't want to do. So there's a couple of cases throughout the run where other players do things a little bit faster than what I do, but the cost is having runs where everything is perfect and then you take a death and like boom, that changes the way the run feels to you. Other players can get over that better than I can. In my opinion, the first death causes a drastic change in my gameplay. I feel like I play a lot worse after I make my first mistake, which is an interesting theme of this run actually, because this run is entirely deathless. Not many world records in Super Monkey Ball 2 history have been done without dying, and that's due to like the safety plays that I make in some chapters, such as that strat on cliffs. I also take a thicker path on tiers. The thinner the path you take on that stage we saw earlier, that had the circular thin paths, all that stuff. But I don't think a deathless world record had been set since J. Cool's 3030, which was about like almost 3 years ago now, 2 years ago. So And that was before a lot of new, more optimized strats have been discovered. It's nice to have this time, but it makes it very hard to fight against it. That right there was Spiral Bridge first cycle, by the way. There's not a lot I won't go back and show you. You can like there's not a lot to see. It kind of just looks like I went up the path. But moving on that stage requires a high degree of knowledge. If you go home and try to get up there in one cycle like I did to get a 47, you'll find that it just doesn't work out that way. There's like a lot of little like speed conservation and snaking. It's almost like Mario Kart, you know, you got some pathing on that stage that you need to follow in order to get there as fast as you need to. And when you do, you still only barely catch the cycle. Like you'll notice that I only got there as the bridge was moving away. Getting that first try is extremely important though, because not getting first cycle on that stage costs you 10 seconds. That's like a whole death. Like it's extremely important to get Spiral Bridge first cycle when you're on a good run. And it's a bit nervous because like it's hard. It's basically, imagine if you died if you didn't like move perfectly up that path. That's kind of how it feels like when you're on Spiral Bridge, especially on a good run. Here's a 2-frame pause strat for Civ that lets you set up moving parts which slap the ball forward towards the goal. Saves a couple seconds over really good movement. Some strats that are done through pausing look like they must save like 30 years because it creates some kind of crazy like burst of speed and energy, and then you finish the stage in like the next couple seconds. But you do have to remember that every second we spent paused in the menu is a second where a pauseless runner would already be like moving. They would already be starting their strat. So a strat might not save as much time as you think. Like that one that I did on Flock, that last stage, that saves like a solid 30 seconds or so, 20, 25 seconds. Because the only way to play that stage normally is slowly. But that strat on Civ, where I got hit by the 2 Civs, it doesn't save a lot because you can actually move through that stage very fast normally. 8 bracelets, my favorite stage in the run. It's very smooth, momentum based. You kind of drop off the stage early and use the first bracelet to send yourself towards the goal. Getting the red goal for style points. And quick turn. This is an interesting strat. I actually was someone who was very intrigued by the prospect of not just walking forward on the stage. See, the cycles kind of just line up when you walk forward. So it's a free stage, it's brainless. But there is a strat called Boosted Quick Turn where you boost at the beginning to build speed and save a second. But it requires a ton of speed management and a little bit of wall RNG. A little bit of wall randomness, so not what you do when you're on a deathless run. Like, when you're on a deathless run, sure, you gotta commit to the same strats you always do, or else your run will end up being a lot slower than you expect. But you can't do strats that have a little bit of randomness to them. You just can't, because, like, imagine losing it. Everything's going well and you lose it to something you can't control. It's very sad. You'll now hopefully let's see if we can see the fear on Peter's face. He's aware. There are not many runs that one can get to this world without like many mistakes. I see him. He's shaking. He's going back and forth. Look, he's scratching his face. I bet he's sweaty. You can kind of tell stuff that's going on. I'm sure right now he's talking about. Let's see what he's talking about. Oh, he's just whispering. He's muttering. He's scared. That's World 8, man. World 8 is by far the scariest world to be on good pace. All the levels are very movement heavy, very tight, very fast, and like very, very hard. For example, this next strat, considered to be the hardest strat in the game by many players, involves a wall boost setup into a clip to line up your angle, bounce off a moving part, and then you gotta kind of Kobe into the goal, but not right from above the goal where it's nice and pleasant. You gotta thread the needle a little bit to finish that strat. It's consistent with time, but a little bit of nerves can really shake you up there and mess up how you go about doing that strat. Getting that first try is a sigh of relief, though, actually. The first 4 stages of World 8 are the worst of them. Little pause strat here to set up bouncing across the spiraling vortex into the blue goal. But yeah, once you get past the first 4 levels, you're a little bit relieved going into the rest of World 8. The rest of World 8 is pretty hard, but the first 4 are the ones that can just, like, take your run away from you like that. You can take a death to randomness on soft cream. You can take a death because momentum's hard. You can then die to Entangled Path 3 times in a row. It's over. But getting out of there, hopefully you're feeling a little bit better. Swing Shaft is an easy stage as long as you remember to slow down. If you don't slow down a little bit at the end, you'll notice like the camera's facing forward. He pulls back. If you don't pull back there, you get no collision and you just die instantly. That's the thing that can be forgotten when you're nervous. And that is one of the saddest ways to lose time in World 8, for sure. For sure. But coming up is actually the major time save over this world record for someone who wants to compete against it. Because I actually missed the strat I'm going for on this stage. To put things into perspective, Warp is a stage that you finish at about 20 seconds in if you play it normally. Like before the pause strat, which is about to be attempted, was invented, it was a very long stage, the longest stage in the world. And the only way to complete it is to just complete it casually. Like you just have to play it the way the stage intended you to be playing it. I'm about to attempt a 4-frame strat called Warp Frames, which is actually not that hard. It has a lot of backups, the frames are pretty easy, and no matter what, you can always finish the stage normally. But you'll notice that I have to pause once, twice, and then I fail. I miss the second frame. So that's 2 seconds lost to pausing, and then an extra like 6 or 7 seconds lost to just having to play the stage. The strat itself actually skips over the entire stage a little bit like curve bridge frames. So you'll notice that having to do that, you know, he's a bit unhappy. He's not feeling great. He's shaking his head a little bit, but he knows that the run is still deathless. The run is still feeling pretty good. It's just a frame was missed, and that costs the potential time save of the strat. Sometimes in speedrunning, the time loss is not a brutal mistake. That causes a game over screen, and Mario goes like, "Uh-oh, game over." Sometimes a mistake is just you having to play the stage normally, you know, not being able to do the speed strat. That saves you a lot of time. Either way, the run continues, and it's still pretty far ahead. These splits I'm actually running against are not really totally my real splits, by the way. I was running against the best time I had on my comparisons that had every level. I had recently switched to splitting every level as opposed to splitting every world, so they're not totally accurate. I think I'm more like maybe 8-10 seconds ahead of my old PB, because my old PB was a 28:41, I believe. And a lot of the time is saved in World 10, because I have a pretty clean World 10, which is hard to do. World 10 is by far the hardest world. I call World 8 the scariest world, because it's all like heavy movement-based strats, and movement is really hard to do when like you're sweaty and nervous. But pause strats, which we're coming up to a great one right now. I digress. Let's just have a look at this one. That thing there, that thing swinging around, that's supposed to kill you, I think. But through three pauses, in just 3 pauses, you can use the threat of the level, the guillotine, to launch you straight into the goal. One of my favorite strats, definitely the ones I usually show off when I talk about pause tech in this game. Also, basically 3-frame perfect. The first frame has some backups, but after that you gotta get the next 2 frames, like, or else you're stuck. You're kind of dead. So doing that when you're nervous is pretty difficult. But as I was saying, World 10 is filled with very, very, very flashy looking, but very, very precise pause strats. And pausing is kind of a beard. It's kind of deceptive, because you think it's easy, because obviously like Entangled Path is a tight angle. It just looks hard. It is hard. But pausing, if you miss a frame, you get punished for it, right? If there's no backups, you just have to retry the strat, and you lose like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 seconds. And that's it. That's it. It may be the same knowledge that is used throughout the run, but each pause strat is equally hard, and each pause strat is like not free. So having to do like 10 or so stages with like maybe 5, 6 pause strats in each one without losing any time, because you know you're on a good run right now, you don't want to miss a single strat, is very hard to do. Basically, to sum it up, sweaty hands makes for hard finger sliding over the pause button. The first stage is really easy though. I don't know why. World 10, very first stage is just a simple rail stage. It's easier than most other rail stages. Very cool. I like to take a thinner rail than most people there, just because I have this theory that it's faster. It's never been proven, but you know, sometimes you gotta do things for the swag. Coming up here is a really cool strat made by my friend Complex. Complex gimmick, named after the guy, Complex. A 5-frame strat that actually sets you up for a clip into this block and up, back up, skipping most of the stage, and bounce you up the ramp faster. There used to be an old 3-frame strat that would still do that skip across that hole, that gap in the middle of the stage, that usually that stage takes like 40 seconds to complete. But there, we completed in like 20 or so. But the complex gimmick is a newer strat that was discovered that has 5 frames in it. Lots of backups though, but 5 frames that puts you up the ramp and saves about like 4 seconds, I would say, over the old strat. Very advanced. Missing it is fine, I guess. But losing that 4 seconds compared to the full time you could get is unfortunate and not how you want to start your World 10. Especially since, like, comparing against my real PB, I don't think I'm ahead after I missed warp frames. So, like, I needed to save time in this World 10. Which, luckily, so far, it's been going pretty well. Labyrinth is one of the more flashier pause strats out there. 4 frames required for it. And it sets up an IL strat that involves clipping off of multiple corners. You'll see that corner and that corner, which, like, you can't even see them. They're just like they're vertexes, or their edges rather. But it's basically RTA tassing. Like, you know, you're in real time. You're setting up frame perfect tricks. It's nice. And there's a lot of those in World 10 because the casual experience for World 10 and Super Monkey Ball 2 are very, very slow stages that were not meant to be skipped. So it takes some brute forcing to bounce across these stairs in ball game and take us right to the goal. You know. And now these are the last 3 stages of the run. This stage is not too difficult. It's a bit of a break, but level 9 Invisible and level 10 Created By are 2 extremely difficult strats that finish off the run. Very climactic finish. Invisible is a hard pause strat, and Created By is a hard pauseless strat. Invisible requires 3 frames and a delicate adjustment. I actually don't get the main set of frames, so I think I'm going to need 4 frames here, which is another big time save over this PB if one wanted to get world record. Yeah, I had to use a backup set, which is also kind of ugly. It doesn't quite take you to the goal. The main set puts you in the goal. This set, I got to roll over here and then wander my way to the goal. A little bit slower, about like 5, 6, yeah, 4.5 seconds lost, it says in my splits. Now here's the final stage of the run. Entering this stage, what you're thinking is, what this guy's, let's see what this guy's thinking. Like, this is it. I get this first try. Like the old world record was 28:39. He doesn't even need to get this first try. He just needs to not fall apart. But this stage does require a pretty finicky, very jank skip that involves rolling across that A as it's rotating. The stage does end up rotating after you hit a button, and it's rather tight and something that he only picked up like a month or so back. So the nerves are real, but all he's got to do is finish it off, and it's happening, man. I'll leave it to him though. I'll let him take it away. A little bit of PP music too. Alright, I gotta stop playing that music or else might be copyrighted, not sure. Good for Twitch, not so good for YouTube. Anyway, there you go. He's popping off in the dark. Little Shadow Man. I like watching that. It's nice to go back and see it. I mean, it's just a lot of time, right? A lot of time you put into speedrunning. And when it finally comes together, you know, it's a good feeling. But yeah, that is Super Monkey Ball 2. Story mode all levels, speedrun. In 28 minutes and 21 seconds. He actually split a little bit late. So it says 28:22, but it was 28:21. My thoughts on this world record that I achieved like 6 months ago about, now I guess it's been, is was a good run. But it was a safe run. You save a lot of time by not dying. But you lose a lot of time by being scared and playing safe. The runners who can beat this are runners who do faster stuff and die more. I believe it. This may be the first, like, deathless world record in a while, but it will definitely not be the last. This is not the end of this category. For anyone who wants to learn this category, though, there are a lot of resources all over. There's the Monkey Ball Discord. There's a tutorial series in the works for learning this category. A strat for every level of all difficulty levels as well. So if you like this game as a kid, or if you just see this game and it looks fun, just pick it up. It's an excellent game for the GameCube, and one of my all-time favorites, and I'm glad I've had the opportunity to speedrun it. But yes, thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this commentated, on-the-fly, little descriptive explanation of all the stuff that went down in this speedrun. I'm happy to share. I really do like this game and the speedrun. So I'll see you guys next time. In another speedrun, probably, hopefully. Whether it'll be world record or not, I mean, hey, you know, this is a big world. But I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.